problem is that there are certain things they cannot hide. So if they release that, it shows that the situation is really desperate. So there is no way you can keep hiding it. And the change in the public opinion is very dramatic and visible. But this is only one side of the story, or one possible explanation. Another explanation is a little bit more conspirological, but still has to be taken seriously. It is very clear that at least some of the people in the Kremlin are 100% certain now that some kind of a compromise has to be made with the West and with the current Ukrainian government. The problem here is not that much even the position of the West or the position of Ukrainians. The major problem, ironically, is Russian propaganda itself. Because, first of all, for a period of like 5 months or more, they depicted this war as some kind of existential struggle between Russian world, as they call it, or Russian society, or Russian people, and the rest of the world, which has only one aim, only one goal, which is to exterminate Russians and to eliminate Russian civilization, and so on and so on. So it was presented as an existential struggle where we have to fight and die or kill everybody, but there is no other options. There are no other options. And now they're actually looking for a compromise. So how can you make a compromise? How make a peace deal with an existential enemy? This is one story, side of the story. Also, how can you and why should you make a deal and a compromise with somebody who is, according to your own explanation, is completely defeated and destroyed, and we just have to wait for another couple of weeks or months till Ukraine collapses and the West collapses, and so on and so on. So in both ways, propaganda was working on raising expectations and feelings which were totally inadequate, and they created some kind of mood within some part of the society. It's not the majority of society, but it's an essential part of the society, which was actually expecting some tremendous successes, tremendous triumph. And now there, at least some people in the Kremlin, now they're looking for an opportunity to bring down these expectations, to bring the society and their groups supporting the regime closer to reality. And it seems that this is now one major effort which is becoming visible, more and more visible by the day. Just recently, there were some very interesting events because first, in the anonymous Telegram channels, there was a report that Putin was very angry at Vladimir Solovyov, who is the major person for the propaganda mafia for this industry. And well, the point was that Putin supposedly made a statement that these people kind of went too far and they're becoming a problem. And then a few days after that anonymous publication, Solovyov was badly beaten by somebody. And he even had to appear on television, online, with his face just showing the traces of him being beaten. And when he was asked by somebody some colleagues, what happened, he refused to answer. So the answer which appeared online in the Telegram channels was that he was beaten by the people from the security police, FSO, which is one of the security services in Russia, who are, well, actually were trying to make him shut up. So don't promote this jingoist propaganda anymore. We don't need it anymore. You have to shut up and stop it, because now the policy is going to change and we are going to move in a totally different direction. And well, that shows that there is a growing conflict within the establishment, because speaking about propaganda people and so-called patriotic segments of the society and patriotic segments of the elite, you should not forget that they are not dominant in the society. Now, nobody is dominant with the society, because the society is apolitical, as I mentioned before. But they are very influential, and they are trying to influence the decision making, the control the decision making, including to control Putin himself. And it seems that at this point, the most reasonable part of the Kremlin team is getting angry at them and is getting scared that these people are pulling us into the direction where we all are going to face a lot of problems, including those people in the Kremlin. So there is a tremendous struggle, and there is a real attempt to kind of reorient the Titanic, to reorient the course of Titanic. But it is already a Titanic. There's no doubt about it.
Well, speaking of Titanics and things that might be sinking, tell us a little bit about the economic situation in Russia. We hear quite often in the West, whether it's in mainstream publications like the Wall Street Journal or whether it's in, left-wing publications or what have you, that while the Europeans have shot themselves in the foot and the Americans have, done what they've done, the Russians have weathered the storm. They've managed to strengthen the ruble, prop up the economy, and more or less the sanctions haven't hurt them. I've, of course, argued against that and basically made the point that most of the damage is being concealed from Western eyes, but that it is happening. So I want to get an insight from you. What is the economic situation like? I understand store shelves aren't empty, but what is the real economic situation like? How are people really being affected, especially working class Russians?
Well, the store shelves are not empty. It's absolutely true. But the question is why? And the question, and the answer to this question is very simple. People can't buy anymore. The income, the revenues of working class people is down. Lots of people are either losing their jobs or losing their incomes, and they can't buy certain products, even certain food. And then, well, of course, there are no shortages. Why should there be shortages when people are not able to buy? That's market economy. Uh, that's capitalism, stupid, in that sense, you should not compare that with the former Soviet Union. When there were economic problems, they ended up in shop shelves becoming empty. But within capitalism, it is totally different. It's not about the shelves of the stores, it's about the pockets of the people. And the pockets are empty. That's what's happening. And also, high ruble, the high exchange rate of the ruble is a tremendous disaster for both for the government and for the population, because first of all, middle class and especially low middle class people kept their savings in the dollars for the last 20 years. So when the dollar collapsed, it means that millions of Russians lost their savings. That's the real meaning of the increasing exchange rate of the ruble. And ironically, the situation of the Minister of Finance is exactly the same. Because the Minister of Finance is complaining about the ruble being too high. Why? because usually the system worked in such a way that Russia got dollars and euros for its exports, which are mostly oil and gas, as you know. And then it was transferred into, exchanged into Russian rubles, which were, in a certain sense, undepreciated. And then you understand the lower is the exchange rate of the ruble, the more money the government got in its budget. So the rubles were used to pay salaries for the people working for the government, pensions, subsidies, welfare, expenditure, and so on and so on, infrastructure. So now, with the very high exchange rate of the ruble, the government doesn't get enough rubles to pay its expenditure, its expenses. So, and then the question is, why is Russian ruble so high if nobody wants it? And the answer is very simple: because of the collapse of their exports, of the imports. So, excuse me, the collapse of the imports. So, what's happening? That you see that Russian oil and Russian gas continue to be sold abroad. That's absolutely true, and even the prices increased. So the quantity of dollars coming into Russia, to some extent, remained stable or even increased. But at the very same moment, their imports collapsed, and with imports collapsing, nobody is interested in buying dollars, because what are you going to do with these dollars? There is no way you can spend them. There is no way you can buy anything abroad with these dollars or euros. And that led to the situation when, of course, the market worked against the